Please be seated. What is your best camping experience? We talked with the kids a bit about that, and as some of you know, in my own family, we don't camp because of David. David doesn't like camping, but I know that this is Scout Sunday, and I know many of us love camping, and there's a long tradition of camping in this congregation. So was it a time in which you were with your Scout troop, and you were learning skills and survival and things about nature? Was it when you were with family and there were just leisure days to explore your surroundings, watching kids find rocks and sticks and things that amazed them? Or is it when you travel with a large group or a small group? Or you're on a hike and you're challenging one another and you're encouraging one another to keep going until you reach the top of the peak or the mountain. There's those moments in nature when we're out in the world, and it is nature, creation, that is singing, proclaiming God's magnificent way of being with us. I know for me, some of those moments stand out, those moments when you're in nature and you are so close to God. God is right there, revealed in that moment. For me, it was one of the times, or many of the times, in which I was camping at Catalina. Anybody go over to Catalina to camp? 26 miles across the sea? If you get up early and go out, you can watch the sun come up. We don't get to do that here in California, but it's absolutely wonderful as the sun comes up and stretches across the water. Your breath is just taken away at the beauty and the God that must have created this type of beauty. Another time was when I was snorkeling on the Great Barrier Reef, and I put my mask on, and I looked into the water, and I got scared. Because when you look in the water in the Great Barrier Reef, there is a whole ecosystem, bright colors, really big fish, really big clams. When we look in the water here in California, nothing. Right? What kind of God creates this ecosystem under the water? But one that stands out the most is seeing the Southern Cross. Seeing in the night sky that cross and realizing that I was on a completely different point on our earth to see a completely different sky than we have here. What kind of magnificent God creates like that? So I know you carry those moments with you, and they help when life gets rough. You remember those moments. You might be at your desk and the boss is on you, or the workload is high, or your kid just told you that the big paper is due tomorrow and you've got 12 hours to finish it. No? Guess that doesn't happen to y'all. But you're overtaken by a valley in this life. And then for just a moment, you can remember the feeling, the way in which creation spoke to you of God's presence. And then you're able to plod along on the task. Well, that takes us to our gospel lesson. Jesus takes 3 three, Peter, James, and John, up on the mountain. I want to tell the disciples, because I'm so wise, when you go up on a mountain with Jesus, something's going to happen, right? If you go up there, something really cool is going to happen. I mean, it's just part of the way that God works. Abraham, Moses, Elijah, when they're up on the mountain, something amazing happens. And so they get up on the mountain, and something amazing happens. Time collapses. God is present. The ultimate lawgiver, the ultimate prophet, Jesus, who is God in the world, are standing together. And time past, the way in which God had been working in the world through Moses and through Elijah, present, the way in which God was working in Jesus, and the future, how Jesus was about to leave the earth. We're all collapsed, and those three disciples are getting to witness this, and what are they doing? They're sleepy. And I think, well, maybe we should cut them some slack because maybe it was a hard hike up the hill. And you know, they were tired, wasn't a whole lot of trail mix. They got grumpy. But there they are, standing in the presence of God, when time has collapsed for them and they are witnessing God working throughout the ages. Our gospel started with 8 days after these sayings. What happened 8 days before this? Does anybody know? Anyone? Jesus says to the disciples, this is not going to end the way you think it's going to end. We're going to go to Jerusalem. I'm going to die in a very difficult way. I'm going to be raised, but these things are going to happen. And I think the disciples are a bit like us because we only focus on the negative. They hear those things, this is not going to end the way we think, and Jesus is going to die, and so they're just focusing on that negative part. And I think 8 days later, Jesus took them to the mountaintop so that they could witness God's presence with them. So that they could take that moment. I know they didn't speak about it, but I'm sure they carried it with them, just like we carry those moments from nature with us. They carried that moment with them so that they would have that feeling, that sight of God being revealed to them on the mountaintop, God being very present with them. For when they faced the valley times of their lives, they could remember God being present with them. How God was working in the past, the present, and the future to bring about wholeness and healing. And so I think they left that time with this theophany. It's not a made-up pastor word. This theophany, this encounter with the divine, with God. And they carried it in their souls and in their minds, knowing that God was very real and very present to them in all time. And they carried it into the days that were ahead. As we begin the Lenten journey. As they are going to walk with Jesus into Jerusalem and toward the cross, they carried this memory, this presence of God with them, so that even in their darkest times, they would remember God is with them. Just as we, even in our darkest times, can remember God is with us. And so we go into Lent knowing that God is present, God is real, and God is revealed to each and every one of us.